Welcome back to another Queen City Press podcast preview show. I'm Laurel Failer, and I'm joined by Tyler Snipes of MLSsoccer.com. We're here to preview FC Cincinnati's game this weekend at Minnesota United, 4:30 p.m. on Saturday. We'll get into that with a special guest from MLS on Apple TV broadcasters Kyndra de St. Aubin. And before that, we'll dive into Wednesday's result against O&M FC. And then we'll get into the FCC2 team a little bit as they are set to open their season on Sunday. And you'll hear a conversation with new coach Sammy Castellanos to help us kind of preview that. And yeah, I think it'll be a good show. Tyler, how are you doing today?
Better than O&M on the flight home after that one last night. I think 9-0 says it all. I don't know what to take from it other than it was good to see. Obviously, them meeting expectations. You know what I mean? Like not getting lackadaisical. I believe that you chatted with Coach after the game and you mentioned that. But then, it's what stood out to me just getting a lot of those guys their first professional goals. Like it's not the most difficult opponent, but those are CONCACAF goals nonetheless. And, the back end of this tournament is the most important competition every single team in it is playing for. So, I think that those are the bright spots, but I'm not saying that it was a fair judgment of where this team is right now. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, everyone was kind of looking at it like, well, why didn't the starters get a 9-0 result in the Dominican Republic? Like, This was a heavily rotated FC Cincinnati squad. We saw, I think, four former academy players that are still pretty young, like you mentioned, get their first career goals for FC Cincinnati. The only real mainstays were probably Obi Wobodo. I might be missing someone else. I mean, Dado Valenzuela will have. There's guys that'll have a role, obviously, but they were able to really rotate. And so, that was a common thing that I was seeing. Like, why did this group get such a big result? That was the most lopsided win in FC Cincinnati history, most goals they've ever scored in a game. So I would say probably that comes down to the O&M coach ended up sharing in his post-game press conference that they actually had 14. He said 14 players. We kind of added it up with, they did have 5 subs. So we believe he was meaning 14 outfield players. Those were the only ones that were able to travel because of some visa issues so it wasn't really probably their strongest group. Still, I mean, there's still obviously a huge gap in just the quality of the talent these teams are able to bring. But I think that was a little discouraging for him to at least not be able to put out their best effort. And as the goals were piling up, it just seemed like that they were just ready to go home. So it is hard to read too much into it. I mean, there was some really, the thing Pat Noonan said after the game that really stood out to me was that he was really happy with just the quality of the goals that they, especially as they got a lead. You could have seen guys just trying to, go to goal and make something look really pretty, and they weren't, I mean, they ended up with some pretty goals, but they weren't, losing the ball on the dribble because they're trying to, dribble through everyone and just say, hey, look at me, this is my show now. And so that was one thing that stood out. And then just, I mean, as far as the young guys that got minutes, you still have to consider that this was a very different opponent and a really strong performance in this game, even though it is Champions Cup and it is the highest level of competition that they will eventually be facing, to be able to win this thing. It's you can't read too much into it. And so while Steven Jimenez looked really strong, these guys still have to prove it every day in training. And when they do get those opportunities, if they come in MLS or down the road in Leagues Cup.
Yeah, exactly. So if they got too high with this, then what is it? What's up next? Is it's not Tigres. It's going to be
No, it's
it is
Tigres.
Tigres. I was going to say, yeah, like if you bring on too much bad karma, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that comes back around when you face a club like that. So yeah, for them, obviously that's a lot to get ready for. They don't have to worry about it quite yet, but that will be a lot tougher than O&M. I think we both agree.
Yes. Yeah, but I mean, I was a little surprised. I had asked Pat Noonan beforehand if, because of Evander's injury, the news, if anyone's just kind of catching up on all that, Evander, they did have some scans on Monday, and it doesn't seem like there was no major damage or anything. So they're calling it minor, not going to be a long-term issue. He had been ruled out for Wednesday, which we wouldn't have seen him anyway. But he was kind of Pat Noonan was kind of leaving the door open for this weekend, but I don't think that makes sense. So I asked him if they were going to need to protect Dotto a little bit. And so Pat Noonan said they had, considered that, you do want to make sure that you've got your best options, and they maybe could have gotten through with Ademar Chavez just starting this one, but they went with Dotto and he played his 45 minutes and then they got him out. That was kind of their version of protecting him. But he kind of described it as some of these guys, like probably they were planning on playing this game and they need those minutes too. So he didn't want to, I don't think, change it up too much, but they were able to, this whole series, rotate, get guys in and out quickly. If Miles Robinson started that first one and we didn't see him at all on Wednesday, so it was a good chance to just kind of see some new guys, and they kind of took the spotlight though. Obi Wobodo, that's the other thing I want to point out. He looked really good in his minutes. He played 84 minutes. I was surprised again because he played the whole game down in the Dominican. And he was playing pretty far up the field, had 3 assists, almost had a goal, but Dotto kind of took it away from him, tapped it in to finish it off. I think it was going in, but Dotto made sure it was. And he was lucky he wasn't offsides, because that was the first thing I thought was, oh no, he just took away a goal and it's not going to count because I think he was offside. But no, they counted it. So they were up 4-0 by halftime. And yeah, Stephen Jimenez, Kenji Mobadem, Stefan Chirilla, and Ademar Chavez all got their first career goals for FC Cincinnati. So big deal for them. And it was fun. That was the other thing. It was just fun talking to those guys after the game, guys that I don't always get to talk to because they're probably not playing a lot, or they're with the FCC2 team more. And it was just, fun to hear them talking about their moments and how special it was to get that opportunity. And it'll be fun to watch some of these young guys develop. I think Ademar Chavez will be a good one to keep an eye on. He's their recent homegrown signing, 17 years old, came from LAFC's academy originally, then came over here in 2024, quietly signed an FCC2 deal end of last year, and then already was bumped up to a homegrown first team deal this preseason. So another one, he's a good one to watch. Andre Chirilla got another start. He'll be fun to watch. So it was unique in that we got to just see something a little different.
Yeah, and I'm expecting a lot of those guys will be featuring in FCC2, which will this will probably be the most we talk about FCC2 this year, or maybe not. I hope I'm wrong there, but a lot. We can zoom out on that here in a moment. And then, first we will hear from our friends.
Today's episode is sponsored by Hoist. Hoist is IV level hydration created to fuel adventure, increase performance, maximize capabilities, and power the grit that gets things done. Hoist is more than a sports drink, a lot more. It's carefully formulated, aggressive hydration science, and research in action. Hoist is clinically proven to hydrate 110% better than water and keep your body hydrated longer. Hoist is half the sugar and 3 times the electrolytes, with no artificial dyes, preservatives, or artificial sweeteners. No surprise then that Hoist is the trusted and preferred hydration partner of the U.S. military and the U.S. Department of Defense.
Well, thanks to our sponsors, Hoist. And if anyone else would like to join Hoist in partnering with us, feel free to send us an email at thequeencitypress@gmail.com and I'll get you a media kit. We would love to grow with you and have you a part of our show. So with that, why don't we go on and get into this Minnesota United preview that we are going to be doing with a special guest. But Tyler, before we do that, do you have any initial thoughts on this match? Like coming off a win for FC Cincinnati against Atlanta, 2-0 last weekend. Minnesota ended up with a 2-2 draw at Austin. We don't see these Western Conference teams all the time, but every time I hear Minnesota, I think of I think it was like a 7-1 loss back in. Do you remember that one?
Yeah,
I don't know. Every time they go to Minnesota, I just think of that game. I probably got the score wrong, but it was pretty lopsided.
It was something like that.
Yeah. Do you have any initial thoughts on this game before we bring in our guest?
Obviously, plenty to ask her about as a person in the market, but you can look at the forecast. And my thing is, before I know anything else, it's just like for early in the season, you just hope everybody comes out of this one healthy. Yeah. If you get a point and everybody's healthy, I think you kind of take that as a dub, knowing that they're a tough team, making like they finished 4th last year, Western Conference final the year before that. Like they beat the Sounders in the playoffs last year. Like this is a tough team. Very brutal roadie. I don't think you have to play like it's a cup final in this one, but the game could change, the game could get crazy, and the game could call for chaos. So you never know. But that before seeing anything or before hearing from our guest, that's what I think.
It's just disappointing that it's supposed to be. I don't know if the forecast has changed, but it was like 60 degrees here on Saturday when I last looked at it. And yeah, I don't know. How many? I don't think any of the teams in Texas, Florida, California, those teams should not have any away games and at the beginning of the season until like April. We should send all the games that we can down there, and maybe Atlanta would be another one. I'm trying to think what other warmer climates they could use. It's like, why are we playing these games in Minnesota in February? But that's just me.
But hey, the fans do it. I don't know, before the Vikings new stadium, or like what's the college team? What did Minnesota used to play? Minnesota United, that is, used to play before they had the stadium. Had a crazy Atlanta game. Like the fans have no problem going to like those crazy games. NFL fans around the country will withstand it. So I think in a region like that, the fans are going to show up for you. And that's the most important thing, right? I
guess it's just preparing us for the MLS calendar change, which is really not going to be that much of a change down the road because we're still playing in these cold months, but we'll see. But why don't we go on? And I think it's good time to bring in our guest. So Kyndra de St. Aubin serves as a match analyst for MLS on Apple TV. She joined the team with she joined the Apple TV team at its launch in 2023 after 6 seasons as the television analyst for Minnesota United FC, where she made history as the first woman to serve as a full-time lead analyst for an MLS team. So she's a Minnesota native who started her career in radio. She's covered 3 Women's World Cups, served as an analyst and sideline reporter for the Big Ten Network and Pac-12 Network, and also was a lead analyst for the NWSL for 2 seasons. So let's bring in Kyndra to talk with us about this Minnesota game. Well, thanks for joining us, Kyndra. I think you're the perfect person to talk to us today about Minnesota United, being from there, doing broadcasts there for a long time. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So I understand that it's going to be pretty cold at kickoff tomorrow. I was looking at the forecast yesterday. It said like 19 degrees around kickoff time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about accurate. We'll see what the wind looks like, but in general, we're hoping the sun is shining and earlier start time, which is super helpful instead of 7:30 p.m. So that'll be helpful for anybody sitting in the stands. And hopefully the guys running around will just be motivated because it's going to be a great atmosphere as usual. Opening day for Minnesota. Minnesota United has never had an opening day in February. So this is a first. We just got it right in there on one of the last days of February to sneak it in.
And this is going to be a very new look Minnesota United. I think we count 10 departures, 9 new players, including James Rodriguez. Of course, Coach Cam Knowles coming in late in the preseason. Funny time to mention Eric Ramsey. I don't think we'll go all the way there today. But, just with all those changes, with the head coaching change, did they see that as a, disadvantage having to, adjust to all that so late with so many newcomers? And, what have you made of the group of Minnesota this year?
Well, I'm fortunate in that I'm able to attend a lot of Minnesota United training sessions. So whenever they were here for preseason in the state of Minnesota, I tried to go to a couple here and there just to kind of get a feel for what the group was like. And Cameron Knowles coming in as the head coach. Obviously, he was the assistant coach before. He was the interim coach for a few games before that. He was the twos coach before that. He was the video coordinator before that. So this is a familiar face. And even when he was the interim coach in 2024, I believe it was now. It's all blur. Before Eric Ramsey came in, all the guys had the utmost amount of confidence in him. The whole staff, the whole club has an incredible amount of confidence in him and how he kind of has these relationships. Because oftentimes it's hard to go from an assistant coach to a head coach because as an assistant coach, you oftentimes have just different relationships with players and what you're sort of asked to how you connect with them as opposed to a head coach. But everybody seems to love Cameron Knowles. So I think the biggest change is that, and Cameron Knowles has said this, that even going into this year, they knew they were going to have to adapt and make some changes to how they played the game. Because if you're not adapting and you're not changing, you're kind of standing still or going backwards in this league. And everybody started to catch on to how Minnesota United wanted to play. Compact, organized defensively, very tough to do for 34 games, 90 minutes of games. It's asking a lot. And you have to have a real cohesiveness and buy-in. So the head coach in Knowles had said, we already were looking at how can we change what we're doing going forward? How can we be more on the front foot, be more aggressive, be more attack-minded in the final third? And, excuse me, I think against Austin in game 1, you saw a little bit of it. You saw little glimpses of it. They're trying to do it, but yet it was so ingrained in them to stay home, to stay defensive, to stay organized, to stay behind the ball, and like take your moments in transition, that now all of a sudden they're rewiring their brains. And that may be where it's actually beneficial to have some of these new guys in and some of these other guys out, because this is fresh for them. Thomas Chancalay wants to play this way. He's got a familiar relationship with Joaquin Pereira playing in youth national teams together. So you can already see kind of a connection there. James Rodriguez, if he plays or not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what his availability will be for Saturday's game. But I think in general, this is still a work in progress as far as getting this new look going. But it's all, I think if you ask the guys, it's all positive, just kind of ironing out, some kinks. And then you still have Will Trapp, you have Michael Boxall. Having a new goalkeeper, yes, and Drake Callender is different, but he's also a veteran of the league. So there's some familiar familiar faces, but also some new guys that are going to add a spark, I think, as well.
You just touched on a bunch of things that I know we're going to pick on a little bit more here in a little while, but going back to just what you were saying about how they were already going to make some tweaks. I think a lot of people would probably view a coaching change in mid-January as, maybe putting you at a disadvantage. Do you feel like because they were already making some changes, maybe that's not how they view it at all?
I feel like it was not as much of a disadvantage as maybe from the outside it seems, only because they knew that Eric Ramsey had aspirations of what his dream was and to go, coach overseas. And not that he was using this as a stepping stone by any means, but you also can't predict as a coach or a player when something's going to become available. So had that job not become available, I don't know that he would have left. But you have to kind of take it when the opportunity arises. And yes, we don't need to harp on the fact that he's already lost that job. And it wasn't maybe the best situation for him to go into, but you can't turn that down. And we've seen that in this. I mean, think about Pat Noonan when he took over Cincinnati, had never been a head coach, wooden spoon. Like, I remember talking to Pat, like, holy smokes, like, I'm so happy that you got this job, but you've got your work cut out for you. But you can't turn that down when the job becomes available and you get that opportunity in that moment, and look what he's done with it. So I think that this Cameron Knowles decision also was very fitting because of his familiarity with the group. And Khalid Al-Ahmad, who is the sporting director and chief soccer officer, he kind of came into this eyes wide open with Eric Ramsey, that he was going to, Ramsey was going to take them sort of to this promised land for a little bit of time, but he also knew his aspirations. So it was always sort of in the works, I think. Nobody was completely like, holy cow, I didn't know he was going to leave. And you're just like left in a lurch. I think they kind of all felt it was coming, and it's been a smooth transition.
Yeah, and week one arguably looks really good. So Kelvin Yeboah rescues a point in the 90th minute for, a double comeback. I know there's more star power coming to the team, but do you feel like that was symbolic of what they need Kelvin to do this year?
Well, it was huge for him, I think, confidence-wise. And you can ask any goal scorer, and I'm sure you guys have dealt with it the same in Cincinnati. And Kevin Denke scoring, early and scoring against Atlanta, like things like that, right? These guys they know the expectations, the pressure, the DP tag, which we in this league put a whole lot of pressure on. And these guys come over and they're like, what the heck is a DP? I've never heard of it. But like we put in this league, it's a very important piece. And everybody's like, hey, he's a DP. He needs to score. So it's a big moment for Kelvin Yeboah, because he came in just so hot and on fire for half of a season, scoring ridiculous amounts of goals in that short amount of time in 2024. 2025 was a little bit slower. He got his position taken over by, Tani Oluwaseyi, who then gets sold overseas. And then right after Tani left, Kelvin got hurt for a bit with a hamstring injury in an Open Cup game. So this was a big moment for him. He needs to lead that line. He is he is a true professional, goes about his business in a great way, shows up to work every day, not afraid to do the dirty work defensively, which everybody number 9 these days has to do. You can't just stand up there and wait for the ball. Like this is a big moment for him. And I was happy for him, just knowing what that felt like last year and feeling like he didn't provide for the team and do what he needed to do to keep that team, in a positive way. And even though they got into the Western Conference semifinal game.
How do you think they viewed that first result? Like, a draw is not too bad, but given what happened last year, finished 4th, I believe. And how do you think that just the way they came back, was that encouraging?
I think it felt like a win for them and a loss for Austin, because Austin to lose the lead twice at home and then not come away with 3 points, especially that late in the game. I would think for Minnesota, it felt more like a win. And yeah, it's not exactly the way they want to play, but back to your original point about the changes and the new faces and, working all preseason, and not everybody was fully available during the preseason. Jefferson Diaz had gone away to get his green card and had just flown back straight to Austin. So that's why he did not start in the right back position. So DJ Taylor, who hadn't started since last May and didn't get a whole lot of time last year. And I have no problem with DJ Taylor, but it's just a different animal being in real. And then you have the chemistry issue where Boxall had played with Jefferson Diaz all preseason. And all of a sudden, not that he doesn't know, DJ Taylor, it's a different animal. So even if you look at that first goal and kind of miscommunication on zonal man marking, and if Jefferson would have been there, would that have happened? Like things like that. So I feel like with where they're at and coming into this year with the new faces and the changes, being on the road, I think one team went on the road in the first week, maybe. And now I'm totally blanking on who it was. They had me on for the Loons podcast this morning, and now I'm like having a brain fart on who it was. But to get a draw on the road, I think there was maybe 3 draws, 1 win, and everybody else, the home teams, won in opening weekend. So I think it was, I think they'll take that moment and build on it and head into opening weekend, hoping they can get another one, but knowing it's a very tough task in Cincinnati.
Yeah, and you mentioned up top, we were going to ask about James, so you're not sure if he's going to play. We have seen him in training, but I guess, if he does play, most likely wouldn't be starting, just knowing how things go. But how do you feel like he lines up with Joaquin Pereira? Is there enough soccer ball for both of them, or do you think he plays more up top when he does get integrated?
Well, I think with James and what I've seen from training, first of all, again, I'm not privy to any inside information, but I have gone to training as much as possible when I live, 20 minutes down the road from where they train. And he seems to be welcome into the group, a really hard worker. He wants to be here because that's the biggest question is this the right move? Was this worth the money? It's a short contract. And I kind of view it as he needs the club as much as the club needs him in this moment of time. He's trying to get game fit. He wants to be at his best for Colombia come the World Cup in the summer. He wants to be in the United States with his family so he can already be here and, around the vibe of what's going to happen in the World Cup. And he hadn't played in a game. He's just been training on his own. So this is an important moment for him to lead that line for Colombia. So he's as motivated as Minnesota is to sort of capitalize on his quality, his stardom, having a true number 10, which they haven't had in a couple of years since Emmanuel Reynoso, in that position to really be a playmaker. And I understand also that there's, most of the guys in this league are lacking confidence, borderline arrogance. So if you're Joaquin Pereira or you're Thomas Chancalay, you're maybe wanting to err a little bit on the side of like, well, who's this guy coming in? But at the same time, it's like, we got James Rodriguez. And I'm going to take this moment in the next handful of months while he is here. And if he continues on after the World Cup, we'll see, to elevate your game, not just the team, but your game. I mean, he can make you look better. So that's how I would view it if I was a player. If I'm Joaquin Pereira and Thomas Chancalay, you are welcome, that he's in your training sessions. These young players are getting to play with him. He didn't travel to Austin. He was training with the twos. I mean, I don't know what that would feel like. Back in my day, because I'm old, it'd be like Mia Hamm showing up at my, college soccer practice. And I'd be like, okay, this is fantastic. How fun is this to be able to train alongside and see how a professional at that level works? So we all know his qualities on the ball. We all know what he's capable of. I would guess he would push a little bit higher and not sit in the middle as a number 10. And I don't know if you guys feel like this, but there's no like true position anymore. It's not like you just stay here and you stay here and you only play on the wing and your outside backs are pushing up, but then they're cutting inside. They're so good on the ball. Somebody can drop in as a 6. Somebody can push higher. A 10 can float into the wide areas to find the ball. Kelvin Yeboah can drop in if he needs to and play make and then spin off. And he used to serve the ball to Tani Oluwaseyi. Everybody is so different now in their qualities and so technical that regardless of where you put James Rodriguez, I think players will learn how to play with him and around him. And likewise, he's going to have to do the same. So it's going to be fun to watch if he gets on the pitch. And I'm with you. If he plays, I'm guessing he comes off the bench, because who knows what kind of minutes you can get out of him and how fit he is and ready to go. I saw him at training the other day. He trained the whole training session, but you're also looking for the whole next 4 or 5 games, and then beyond into the World Cup, not just opening day, as much as it's tempting to, throw up. Like, look at Facundo Torres. I don't know if you guys saw any of the Austin game. He had just joined the team not that long ago. I know he's younger than James Rodriguez, but I was not expecting him to play like 80 some minutes. But there's an adrenaline pumping. There's an energy. You're excited to be with the new club. You're feeding off the fans. They're going to love him. I'm sure there will be a bunch of yellow Columbia jerseys. So I think regardless of what happens, I think it'll be a good day. And I would expect James Rodriguez to step on the field and make a difference whenever that is.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of excitement over that. So just looking at, you mentioned Dane St. Clair and moving on, and Drake Callender coming in. Obviously, you got Minnesota United losing the MLS goalkeeper of the year has to be a little tough. Another departure, Robin Laud, player that had been there 6 years. Just looking at those two particular players, how big of a change is that for this team?
Well, I think starting with Dane St. Clair, yes, when you look at just his statistics and the fact that he was reigning MLS goalkeeper of the year and his personality, it was a big personality. He was well known for his antics on penalty kicks and shootouts and things like that. But it felt like there was always a little bit of a writing on the wall, knowing that he was going into the last year of his contract and where does he want to be, and heading into a World Cup year again and wanting to be the starting goalkeeper for Canada, which he had kind of solidified himself as the number 1. So I think for him, sorry, I'm muting my phone here. My watch is buzzing. When for him, I think this was just a moment where he wanted to capitalize on that and make a change and head to Miami. I personally, when I saw it, I was surprised, knowing that Minnesota wanted him, knowing that they offered him. Knowing that he could have been like the mayor of the state of St. Paul, Minneapolis, because he's got that kind of personality. Everybody knows him. He solidified himself in this market. Going into a World Cup year, he could have just owned it and been a superstar on the field. And there's a familiarity where you're training, the trainers you're working with, the people that are surrounding you. You've kind of got your crew. So going to a new place in a World Cup year, I understand wanting to play with Messi, but at the same time, it's a different animal down there. There's a different kind of pressure, a different kind of energy, a different kind of attention. We all saw a little bit of the slip up in the first game against LAFC with, Dane St. Clair coming off his line and Denis Bouanga just making a meal of it. And, Messi doesn't put up with much, and we'll see what happens. I'm not saying Dane St. Clair is going to get yanked, but I think Miami went through 5 goalies last year. And I think Drake Callender is phenomenal. I do. He's a calm, quiet, confident, great distributor, great with the feet, can make the big saves when he needs to, but he makes the consistent saves. So I think it was interesting, different personality, different voice between the pipes, but I think it'll be a good change for Minnesota. And Robin Lod, a tremendous guy, just very quiet, but does what he needs to do. They're going to miss his versatility and his willingness to do whatever the team has asked of him. He's literally played everywhere except for goalkeeper and done well at it. But I think they have so many good people in the midfield now. There's plenty of depth. And it was just, to my knowledge, it was his choice. He wanted a change. He wanted to be in Chicago. It's good for him. I'm happy for him. I like Greg Berhalter. I like Chicago Fire. So we'll see how he does there. But I think there's plenty of pieces in the midfield to make up for what Robin Lod, no longer there.
And part of that, another one of those, you answered a question before we asked it up top, was just the way they played last year. A little dangerous, right? Just kind of living on the counter, league low in possession, which obviously isn't everything. But, does that grant them, because they did that all the way to a 4th place finish in the West, which is just incredible, right? So does that grant them, a little bit of an experiment, or, do they have to keep some bits of that? And then talking about it, doing it one thing, opening day to week, whatever, will we know what this team is, I guess would be the question.
That's a great point, because I think we all kind of look at the schedule and say, okay, for any team, when do we kind of think we'll know who they're going to be, barring transfers and new signings and whatever else? Because I think it is tough to evaluate teams in the first 1, 2, 3, 4 games of the season with the new pieces in, new, pieces leaving. But to your point, that was a very brave and difficult way for them to play last year. And ask Will Trapp or ask Michael Boxall, not easy to do, to understand that you have to be connected at all times in all moments of the games, and you can't turn off. And if you do turn off, you're already in your own defensive third. And the quality of this league now, people are going to make you pay. To my knowledge, Evander's not available for Saturday. I don't know that for a fact, but let's say a player like him who can just barely needs to lift his leg and can, put a rocket on frame from 40 yards out. So if you're turning the ball over, even in the middle of the pitch, with the quality in this league now, or not defending well in the middle of the field now, they're going to make you pay. So Minnesota kind of lived on the edge last year, hoping that they would get enough moments in transition to capitalize. What they didn't do a lot of last year was come from behind. And that was probably a product of the energy it took to defend. And also just, you have very few moments going forward in transition that you have to capitalize on. What kind of goal scorer do you have that, you can kind of put it on their back and say, okay, if we get this moment, we can send it long. We can find an opportunity with 2v1s and we know they're going to score. So I think they were living on the edge last year. I think this year is going to be a little bit more free flowing. I think you'll still see organized shape, but higher up the field. So when they force a turnover, they're already closer to goal, maybe a little less work defensively, but they're not going to lose sight of the fact of what made them really good. And that was connectedness, shape, organization defensively. I was listening to Michael Boxall talk after practice the other day, and, he felt a little disappointed in some of the moments defensively that they weren't as connected as they got used to being last year, but just understanding they're also trying to do different things going forward.
Well, I do want to switch over to FC Cincinnati a little bit, get your take on them. So what are your initial impressions of this FC Cincinnati squad?
Well, I got home last night and I said to my daughter, I said, hey, let's check out the game. Let's see if it's still on. And I pulled up my app and I was like, never mind, it's over. And it was 9-0, so I was like, okay, I guess we'll have to rewatch that game. But I am incredibly impressed with, and again, we're talking one regular season game, but if you include the CONCACAF championship games, impressed with the fact that they've been able to navigate that schedule, even if the 2 games that they played in CCC weren't super challenging. You're still having to rotate squads. You're still having to, speed up your preseason a little bit to be ready for this, to understand the depth you have in your team. The team that he threw out there last night was completely different than what we saw against Atlanta United, with some pieces coming in and subs. The ability to rest the guys and not have to use them last night, knowing that these young guys and some of these other guys that don't get as many minutes have stepped up in big moments and been able to carry the load. And it's a huge learning lesson for them. So I've been impressed. We'll see if Denke can keep doing what is expected of him and leading that line. We'll see what Evander's health ends up being, not just for this next game, but in general. Hopefully, if it's, I haven't seen a report, but maybe it's just a few weeks if he's not playing, if it's a muscle thing. But in general, I look forward to seeing what the Cincinnati team does long term and in the next round against Tigres, which is a big deal. It's not the club they just played against. And then on the road here this weekend at Minnesota as well. But I'm really impressed. And then the guys that are supposed to show up, which is what you need. That's exactly what you need. And Dado Valenzuela as well. The expectations are high when you're coming in for an Evander that goes out, 10 minutes into the game hurt.
Yeah, the update on Evander is just they said it's minor, so he wasn't going to play obviously last night probably anyway.
Yeah.
I don't see why they would risk him this weekend. I think he's going to need some time to recover at least. So yeah, I guess how different is this team, do you think, though, if he does have to miss a few games? You mentioned Dado Valenzuela, very talented player who's really looking forward to getting some playing time here. I guess just what would your view of this team without Evander? How does that change?
Well, I think at times, and this isn't a knock because you always want your superstars, but the team can just play differently when you take a superstar out of the picture, because it kind of forces everyone else to step up and maybe be a little more. And maybe you guys saw this with Luciano Acosta when he was there. And I don't know if people speak that name anymore around there or not, but sometimes you remove them and all the other guys don't feel this pressure to always get him the ball or always find him, or feel like if I don't give him the ball when he asks for it. I'm not saying Evander is the same as Lucho, like as far as demanding the ball or being mad if he doesn't get it. But in general, for every team, when you take that star off, sometimes it can create this freedom of flow for the rest of the team and some, willingness to step up in a moment with maybe you wouldn't have before. Valenzuela clearly has ability. You've got these young guys that are stepping in. I was just writing down all the starting 11s that you guys have had so far, and I'm looking at who's in the middle, and even some of the guys that not only aren't starting, but maybe coming off the bench into that midfield role. I don't see there being a huge drop off. Maybe the way you play is different, but I don't see there being a drop off in quality and how you utilize the spaces, whether it's Miles Robinson, he might just drive right forward all the way from the back to the front every time he gets the ball and hope he's not exhausted by, minute 90. But I think that there's enough depth on this group, and Pat Noonan does a really good job of making sure that everybody understands and feels like they belong. You have to earn your time, you earn your minutes, but you belong, and that's why you're up here. And so this is your moment to sort of shine and prove yourself. And so, yeah, you don't want to miss Evander for a really long time, but it is interesting how other guys will step up and it'll kind of change the way you play if your superstar is out.
Do you have time for one more?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Kyndra, we really appreciate your time. And just, if you will, just knowing everything that's gone on in your city, one of the most challenging winters ever, I would imagine. Have you just gotten a buzz about what's going on with the city, how Minnesota United fans feel, and just what this opening day is going to bring and just hopefully mean to them?
Well, first of all, and Cameron Knowles was asked about this Tuesday at training as well. And a lot of the players and the coaches are asked about this often, especially when it was like really in the height of it. But now coming I don't want to say on the tail end of it, but like maybe a little bit of a calm compared to what it was. And especially with the players and understanding how they might be feeling is, you try to look at this moment as a moment where sports brings you together. And soccer is probably one of the most, right? The most international sports with different ethnicities and communities and understanding and welcoming. That's not just like a tagline. That's not just something you throw on a poster or a tifo. That's like a real thing. I feel with soccer is when you show up at the stadium, everybody feels welcome, everybody feels important, and there's an energy about it. And maybe this is a moment where everybody can come and gather in this space and be entertained and enjoy it and feel a sense of community and a sense of safety and a sense of togetherness. I have no idea what the tifo is for Saturday, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, something to that effect. Just kind of like knowing what the supporter groups are like. So this is a moment where everybody can kind of maybe take a deep breath and exhale and come together and celebrate and hopefully feel safe and not feel that they can't come, not feel like they can't come and join in the celebrations or what's going on the Great Lawn. I'm sure it'll be covered in snow, but you know what I mean? Like, and be a part of what's going on in this community, because there's a real sense of support and togetherness and people supporting each other and making sure that they're getting out there and letting people know that they care about them and they care about each other. So that's sort of how I view it. And that's sort of what Cameron Knowles was talking about yesterday. Is it's not that you walk into a stadium and you forget about what's going on, but you're hoping that you can use it as a moment to, have a little reprieve and joy in whatever your day looks like.
Well, we will hear you on the broadcast on Saturday on MLS on Apple TV, 4:30 p.m. Eastern time, Saturday from Minnesota. So, Kyndra, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll look forward to speaking with you again someday down the road, maybe.
Awesome. Thank you. I feel like I'm in Cincinnati. I actually, you know what? I don't want to say that because I don't know what my schedule is past like 10 weeks. They give us chunks of game at a time, but I'll seek you both out the next time I'm in Cincinnati.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Well, that was all very well said by Kyndra. I think that was a great way to end it. Just seems like it'll be a meaningful start to the season for fans for Minnesota United. It's a good opportunity for FC Cincinnati to just kind of see where they're at against a kind of different opponent they don't see a lot. So should be an interesting one, and we'll see if they can start off. I guess it would be 4-0. They're 3-0 across all competition right now, and would be another big win to be able to go. I mean, even if they get a draw, I think it'd be a good result on the road. I think you were mentioning that with the weather.
Yeah. It's a draw and nobody getting hurt. You know what I mean? Like there's many reasons I'm not a professional athlete, but I just can't imagine, those conditions. But at any rate, opening day or opening weekend in MLS Next Pro, and FC Cincinnati 2 kind of has the marquee game in the league. They're hosting Connecticut United, or CT United. I think that's their preference, but they're an expansion independent team, which always gets a little bit of emphasis, or extra emphasis. And their head coach, Shavar Thomas, was actually part of Tyrone Marshall's FC Cincinnati 2 staff, I believe since the inaugural season in 2022. So homecoming of sorts for him. NKU is always really good. So if the weather cooperates, amongst the MLS Next Pro ranks, like Cincinnati 2 games are pretty fun. And obviously with, playing like an independent team on opening week, it's probably one of the bigger games on their calendar this year. I'm bearing the lead with Sammy Castellanos, the new head coach, who you've gotten to speak with a couple of times, and even more recently for your Insider podcast, and I got to listen to that. How have you enjoyed getting to know him, and what have you observed as far as like he's implemented himself into the FCC world?
Yeah, he's been great. I've talked with him now 2 times, and I mean, his energy and passion is real. It really stands out. Like the thing I think that he really brings, and not that Tyrone Marshall or anyone, previously didn't do this, but he seems really interested in connecting with the academy kids. And he talked about, going to all the, I think it was the 16s and 18s, 16s, 17s, whatever it is, that group, and going to every practice and just he's talked about high-fiving the kids and just kind of building up their confidence, letting them know that they can come to him. Like he's looking for the next academy kids to come up and he really wants to use this FC Cincinnati to help. He even mentioned like he doesn't want them in his system for 3 years. Like he wants them in their system 1 year and then moving on to FC Cincinnati's first team. So that's, that's always, I think, been the goal for everyone, but he just seems genuine and wanting to really move those academy kids through the program. And so they keep talking about the player pathway, and he seems like the perfect fit for what they're trying to do right now. And it was an interesting preseason for him. I mean, he came in, they just recently announced their new head coach, Anthony Wallace. It seemed like they were going to be relying on a lot of academy kids this year, but then they went and signed they had a flurry of signings coming through the last couple of weeks. And so they do have some, I think the difference is that the guys they're bringing in are younger players than maybe we've seen in the past when they have signed guys from outside the organization, specifically to FC Cincinnati 2 contracts. So, or MLS Next Pro contracts. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, because his preseason was probably a little disjointed with guys kind of coming and going. He was missing a couple guys that were off with the FC Cincinnati first team in preseason, like Andre Chirilla, and then their goalkeeper, Brian Dowd, who I believe came from Chicago, their 2 team. Am I right there?
I believe so. My Rolodex of MLS Next Pro players is insane. Like it's the 5th year, and like just so many of them come and go. So it's like some guys I remember forever. Some guys like, oh, I wrote about that guy and I completely forgot he existed. It just goes so fast. But I think you're right. I think Dowd was a Chicago goalkeeper.
Yeah. So yeah, I was probably a little disjointed, but then we'll see how it all works out. Going up against a new team, new coach on the other side probably makes it a little more intriguing, and that connection with Shavar Thomas and him coming back. So that game, just heads up, that's 6 p.m. Sunday at NKU Soccer Stadium. You can also now watch MLS Next Pro on One Football. Is there anything more about that this year? What can fans expect from One Football this year?
Nothing else I know about it. Just that it's going to happen. And it's an app that is popular with people all around the world, and makes Next Pro more available. Some of the games were on Apple TV, like exclusive, or a season pass last year exclusively. Last year, so now it's going to be like on MLSNextPro.com and on One Football app for free. So it's cool that more people can watch the games. And I know that that's an app that like resonates with like a lot of like the younger side, and, for like the 2 players, the academy players, like a lot of their peers, like, that's something that's like super popular with them. Whereas I'm kind of an old fart and I just have my methods, and I'm still working on integrating One Football in my daily life. But yeah, I know that's something the league is super proud of. And on the One Football side, like they were very proud of this collaboration too. So hopefully that means new, cool, interesting stuff that just puts more eyeballs on the league.
Well, why don't I go on and share some of my interview with Sammy? So as Tyler mentioned, you can hear the full interview. I think it was about 18, 19 minutes that I had with Sammy Castellanos. You can hear the full thing on Queen City Press Podcast Insider Show, which usually publishes on Monday or Tuesday. It's an early in the week show that has more game recap and exclusive interviews and different content that I kind of give as a perk to my paid subscribers. So head on over to patreon.com/Queen City Press and check out the podcast tier. There is a 15% off annual subscription discount going on right now. And that's in addition to the 9% off that you already get if you subscribe for an annual rate instead of that monthly fee. So that would be code MLS26 at checkout. So if you want to hear the full thing, please check that out and take advantage of that discount. I think I'll run it for a couple weeks here as just we get into the season. But here is I'm going to go on and share about half of that interview. Just, I don't do a ton of FC Cincinnati 2 coverage, so I do want to at least, give that platform for the FCC2 team to kind of get some of the information out there. So here is Sammy Castellanos. How was preseason with your new team? For you personally settling in, and then just with the team, how's everything looking?
Yeah, it's been great so far. I think from the club being so welcoming as I came in, and then putting this puzzle together, the team, the second team space is such an interesting kind of like environment to be in, because there's guys that are in and out, so it's really hard to get continuity with lineups, with players on a daily basis. But I think Jeff, Hunter, Chris did a great job on shaping up this team for preseason, where I had a lot of guys a lot of the times. And it wasn't until now, towards the end of the first team preseason, where guys started trickling in that are like those transition players that are going up and down. But I think from creating a training environment that is very competitive, and then also that in turn helps kind of like your culture kind of come together. And then now with the first team going to the game and feeling the atmosphere, I think it's all kind of coming together.
Was there anyone that really stood out to you this first preseason?
Yeah, and the way I kind of look at it is like who in the academy is up and coming, who as a second team signed player is up and coming, and then who is kind of that transition player that is like kind of getting out of that mode of transition player and really making a push maybe to make an impact with the first team. So I think from the academy side, you have Jack Mize, who came over from Borussia Dortmund. I used to coach him when he was like 12 years old at New York Red Bulls, so it was cool to kind of have that reconnection. But seeing him now and his maturity level and how he's grown up, he's a young man now, and I think him pushing up, you can kind of see him kind of changing his mindset and being ready for that next level. As far as second team players that you're probably familiar with, so like Dylan Hurtado is there and had a really, really good preseason with a bright spot. And then you have a guy like Mosquera who's coming in as well and looking to really push the second team into a new level and to push himself up one higher. And I think you're seeing it live with Andre getting that start in the Champions League game, and I think he most likely will travel again this week. I think you're starting to see him grow into that position, and then now see the guys in front of him, getting little pointers on what he needs to do, how he can play against some of these high-level athletes. So you're kind of seeing those guys in their environment kind of come into their own and seeing like where they're at in their process.
Well, I was going to ask you, have you even gotten to see, has Andre been with the second team at all? Because I know he was in preseason with the first team, and then that call-up went straight to the Dominican.
I haven't seen him.
That's what I thought.
He's been in one training session and just connecting with Pat, Kenny, and Brett and Ricky, and just getting feedback on where he's been, watching preseason sessions, watching him in preseason games, on where we could use him and what other spot we could use him in and things like that. So I've been really connected in that point of view, but actually getting a one-on-one with him. He had his first training with the second team on Saturday. So it was good to get him implemented into the group, guys of his own age and things like that. I think that's super important, where they can kind of come out of their comfort zone a little bit more, because they're just in a challenging environment day to day being with the first team. So I think it's good to kind of let loose a little bit with the second team. And we're expecting him to be a very, very mainstay player this season.
Is he kind of buzzing from that first team debut? He played really well, I thought, against O&M FC.
Yeah, and he's a pretty reserved type of kid.
Yeah. So
I think he's internalizing all those emotions and trying to be like this even keel guy out front. But always, like for me, I'm always reminding myself, like, man, I still have young 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds here. So we also have to help them as human beings on how to deal with those type of emotions, because it's such a awesome environment that he's in and feeling right now. So how do we keep his confidence that high? How do we keep his momentum going that high? You know, I tell the guys this all the time, that like, I don't want you in my environment, you know, for over, you know, 3 seasons. I want to see if I can push you in 1 season up there. And he's one of those guys that I want to keep pushing that button to see if he can really keep himself up in that first team level.
Well, for the fans that are a little bit curious about you as a newcomer to this club, I mean, I can tell them that you seem to bring a lot of energy and just passion, but how would you describe your coaching style to the fans?
Yeah, I think you said it. It's a promise I make to the guys. I'm full of energy. I'm very high energy, passionate, aggressive in my coaching and things like that. And that's what these young guys need to try to get to that next level as quickly as possible. But I like to meet the guys where they're at as an individual. I want to get to know them, where they're from, how many siblings they have, you know, what's got them here to Cincinnati. And then I think I try to find the commonalities within the whole group, that we all, like, what all brought us here to Cincinnati. Because sometimes you kind of get this, you know, Cincinnati isn't the glitz and glamour of these like major markets, but there's something brewing here that's really special. And, you know, sometimes what brings you here was that commonality, where whether it's you got traded or I couldn't make it here, but Cincinnati gave me that safe haven and gave me that kind of runway. I'm using that as kind of ammo of why we're all here. So that passion and energy and playing with a chip on your shoulder, coaching with that chip on your shoulder, that we're a smaller market and we have to get after it. And there's going to be no kind of letdown. It's just gas pedal. And that's kind of like my day-to-day with the guys, that I'm not going to let loose. I'm going to go as fast as possible with you guys to kind of get you where you want to be.
And you guys open on Sunday at home in KU Soccer Stadium.
Yeah.
What are we calling it these days? What are you looking to, what do you want to see out of your team in that game? What are you looking for from this first match?
We've been using the word like a fast start, you know, and just using the passion and energy that we have in our training environment, and how do we implement that in our game environment? Can we be in their end? Can we be ready in transitions? Can we play quickly? Can we get after teams? Can we put teams, you know, in their half on the back foot and kind of put the game on our terms? I want us to be high energy, have passion to play, celebrate the goals, celebrate the tackles. So just kind of recreating that environment in training and seeing if we can recreate that in a game situation when we have uniform on, you know, points on the line, you know, referees out there, all that. So that's going to be the goal for me, you know, and it's still a process for these guys because they're still young. But it's going to be a great test for us. I think the 7-week build up that we've had was just enough to kind of get this group together and exactly where we want to be. And then we're just putting kind of like our finishing touches now this week on this first game coming up. I know it's against Shavar, and you know, he used to coach her as well. And, you know, I know a lot of the guys over there. So there's a little bit more to the game than just Cincinnati versus Connecticut. You know, I think there's a little bit more to it. So I just want the guys to kind of live up to that hype and just empty the tank when they're out there.
So that was Sammy Castellanos. I really appreciated his time, and hopefully you guys enjoyed that little taste. If you want to, again, hear the full thing, we also talked a little bit about Yerson Mosquera's little brother. He mentioned him in this little clip, but I asked him a little bit more about him just because of the fan love for Yerson. Just wanted to kind of know a little bit more about his little brother. And we also talked about the academy a little bit. We talked about his love of Honduran coffee. He's from there. So just a couple other things that were kind of unique that I enjoyed talking with him about. So we also, if you want to know a little bit more about some of those younger players that are going to be coming up through from FC Cincinnati to hopefully the first team, or guys, you know, maybe dropping down, he's a good one to talk to about that. So check that out. And again, if you do subscribe, you get access to all of my content. So I had a story on Dado Valenzuela, just him looking for his opportunity with Evander out. So got to talk to him one-on-one on Saturday after the Atlanta game, and he was pretty good. And yeah, tons of content coming there with the season in full swing now. So that's pretty much all I have for this week. Tyler, what do you have coming up?
That's definitely my busy week. So like for MLSNextPro.com, for editorial and like just anything you could possibly want to know about MLS Next Pro, we've got it. We just did conference previews, introduced all the new coaches, a lot of cool videos and stuff coming out on social. So just I've been very busy helping as much as I can with all of that, as well as an interesting feature. So we have a story coming out. It'll be out tomorrow, or it'll be out when you hear this, whatever, with pro referees. And I'm interested if any listener, I'm not going to like do this on social media because I know what would happen if I did, but like, you know, for any listener who's like made it this far in and checks that out, I'm interested in what readers want to know about referees. We're looking to like do more of those stories, and the referees are, you know, trying to step out of the shadows a little bit and, you know, at least make people aware of like what the ins and outs of their jobs are. So yeah, if you could have a modicum of maturity and, you know, you want to know more about that, we'll be doing a few of those throughout the year. And I'm just more so interested in what people want to know and not doing biographical stuff. So, yeah, if anybody checks this out, send me a message. If you have just things from that world that you don't often get the experts to weigh in on.
Yeah, and you can always, if you don't know how to reach out to Tyler, you can always send an email to the Gmail account that I mentioned earlier. So the Queen City Press at gmail.com, and I'll make sure that gets to Tyler. But I'm interested to see how it goes interviewing these officials and getting them more prepared to answer pool report questions, maybe.
Yeah, we didn't quite go there on this one. But yeah, it's it's interesting. Like if you could just imagine like, you know, doing your regular job, doing whatever, then just like maintaining like the fitness, like all the travel, like all that. It's like they're hustlers, I'll say that. But I know fans hate them, so I'm not trying to like, you know what I mean, like do that. But yeah,
you're humanizing them. It's all right.
yeah. So at least like being aware of the story. Like there's like that's a whole other tangent, but there's like a really good documentary. I think it's a couple of years ago on Paramount called like Man in the Middle, where like they do like UEFA Champions League refs. It's like, if you're a nerd, it's like really compelling, but like, I don't know if the average person cares. And that's, you know, what I'm trying to figure out. So yeah. I don't know what to say about that. Sorry. Oh yeah. Poll reporters. Yeah, no, that's something we can work in. We will. Cause I know that's a consistently inconsistent process, and that's all I will say about that.
Well, I know part of that is just that they're not used to being interviewed. They're not used to doing those interviews. So they kind of view when they're questioned about calls, maybe they're a little hesitant to say too much. So maybe, I mean, we're not even talking with them. They're writing it down. So maybe that doesn't actually translate, but that's the reason we've kind of been told that they don't want to do the like a verbal communication about the calls that we're questioning. So that's a whole tangent. I was just, maybe you can help get them some practice, and then we can actually switch to like phone calls or in-person like not interviews, but just questioning when we do have, you know, situations that arise that we need more clarification on in a game. So
yeah, no, in general, that's kind of how we're like, at least like the angle that we're working on it with is just like evolving the conversation and making sure that they have a place. So yeah, we'll or we can talk about that all day offline. Yeah.
Well, reach out to Tyler if you do have questions or angles you'd like him to approach with the officials with these news stories. So, but I think that wraps it up for today. You know, we'll be recapping the Minnesota game on the Insider Show on probably Monday. We always record that Sunday or Monday. So be sure to check that out, and I'll have coverage of the game, and Tyler's all over the place. So be sure to look for him on MLSsoccer.com and whatever he's doing behind the scenes with MLS Next Pro. I hope you have a good opening weekend for that, Tyler.
Thank you. At the moment, it feels like there's not enough coffee in the world, but
well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week. And yeah, have a good one.